Hey everybody, how's it going? Valve responds to PayPal banning Steam. And so I didn't hear about this. I don't use PayPal. I use Venmo, honestly. And so I don't know really anything about this, but this is another Water CS2 video. And his videos have been really good. He's been covering this topic quite a bit, so we'll just follow him, uh, giving us some good info on it. So far, he's been giving us a lot of really good stuff. So, want to jump in here. Valve responds to PayPal banning Steam.
If you've tried to buy a game on Steam recently, you might have seen this message. Valve has announced the removal of PayPal as a payment option in many countries.
Do you guys use PayPal for stuff like this? I I don't think I've used PayPal ever. And I have people all the time wanting to pay with PayPal for work stuff, and I'm like, no, no, no. I don't do that.
This is not a bug or a mistake. It's part of a bigger problem. The biggest question is, why is this only happening in certain countries? Now, you might remember 1 month ago when we first talked about the collective shout, Steam adding a new rule, and the mass removal of games, that it seemed like PayPal was involved. This is because right at that same time, it seemingly stopped working. It was unknown if this was some bug, a coincidence, or
Oh
actually
my
related
gosh.
to the situation. Now, when you try to use PayPal in an unavailable country, you get this official statement from Valve. Steam stated in early July 2025, PayPal notified Valve that the requiring bank for payment transactions in certain currencies was immediately terminating the process of any transactions related to Steam.
So they're blocking even legal transactions. They're not just targeting certain video games, they're just blocking it altogether. Wow, this affects Steam purchases using uh, euros, CAD, uh, I don't know all
This
those,
is
but
important because an acquiring bank
and even
is the bank that
USD.
handles payments on a company's side. Think of it as the bank that collects the money for Steam. They go on to say this
Wow.
affects currencies other than euro,
Oh,
Canadian
other
dollar,
than.
British pound, Japanese yen, Australian dollar, and the United States
If they stopped it for everything else, it's only a matter of time before they stop it here. Hey Chase, how's it going, bro? Good to see you.
dollar. This means that for every other currency in the world, PayPal is no longer a payment option to buy Steam games.
Bro, this
They
is
continue by
nuts.
saying, "We hope to offer PayPal as an option for these currencies in the future, but the timeline is uncertain. We are also evaluating adding additional payment methods on Steam for the customers affected by this. In the meantime, please
Wow.
use one of our other current payment methods during checkout. If you can't use any of the available options, you can consider using a Steam wallet code to add funds to your account."
I always use the Steam wallet code. Every time I get cash, every time um I could scrounge up enough money to go buy the $30 code card, I will. I usually try and get the $30 code card. At my Best Buy, they max you out at three $30 codes a time, and then Walmart's two codes a time. So if you got enough cash and you're trying to drop some money on some games, to me that's one of the best ways to do it. That's how I like to do it, at least. Um, and it's worked for me so far. I try and not use any other payment method on Steam. Sometimes I'll have to use my credit card, but now I try really hard not to deviate from trying to use cash and convert it into the Steam wallet. That's been working really good because they can't deny that.
This confirms that they are actively trying to fix a problem that they did not create. But this statement also leaves us with a massive question. If the problem is with Steam's content, why would the bank only care about certain currencies? Why is PayPal still working perfectly fine in big markets like the US and the EU? One person on Reddit decided to
Wow.
call PayPal's customer service in Poland to get an answer. The lady insisted I contact Steam because they were the ones who pulled the plug because Steam prefers customers to use their balance. When the user read the official Steam
No,
message to the rep, she became
I doubt that.
irritated and hung up. Does this sound familiar? Because it should. This is the same thing we saw with MasterCard and Visa. When those companies put pressure on Steam, they then publicly denied it. So Valve had to be the one to tell the public the truth. It's clear that PayPal is now doing the same thing, blaming Steam to avoid talking about their own actions. When you put all the facts together, it
Wow.
shows a clear connection. This is a bigger plan to control what people can and can't buy.
They're probably in on it with Visa and MasterCard, I bet. I mean, why else would they block it but they're trying to take eyes off of them temporarily, right? Everyone's going to learn that this is, not good.
Online. For this Steam situation, it all began with an activist group asking payment companies to stop handling payments for games with sexually explicit content. MasterCard and Visa were some of the first to act, which led to Steam's new rule. MasterCard denied doing this, but Valve's statement proved they were the ones responsible.
MasterCard did not communicate with Valve directly despite our request to do so. We've talked about this in some previous videos, but in case anyone hasn't seen those yet, this pretty much will update you. A Valve representative said MasterCard communicated with payment processors and their acquiring banks. Payment processors communicated this with Valve, and we replied by outlining Steam's policy since 2018 of attempting to distribute games that are legal for distribution. Payment processors rejected this and specifically cited MasterCard's Rule 5.12.7 and risk to the MasterCard brand, which we've already established is not a set in stone risk to the brand. They have decided themselves what is a risk to them, and not with stuff being legal. They're considering that even a risk sometimes. So it's definitely something's going to have to change. I hope people are still calling MasterCard and Visa as well.
At that exact same time, the game
I'm pretty sure we're going to have to start calling PayPal now.
Game store itch.io had its payment services with Stripe removed.
And
Stripe's
Stripe
statement
was taken
clear,
out,
saying it couldn't support this kind of content because of its banking partners. This proves that these banks and payment companies are indeed the ones stopping the payments. Now we have the exact same thing happening with PayPal.
PayPal use on Steam is currently unavailable in my currency. Why? In early July 2025, PayPal notified Valve that their acquiring bank for payment transactions in certain currencies was immediately terminating the processing of any transactions related to Steam. So they're blocking legal and, there's no illegal transactions that I know of, but they're blocking everything on Steam. That is crazy.
Bank on PayPal's side has ended its agreement with Steam. The fact that all these events happened at the same time makes it impossible to think that this is just some wild coincidence. Now, you might be wondering, why was PayPal only removed for some countries? They start by making changes in smaller markets with fewer legal protections. This allows them to test their power and put pressure on companies without risking their biggest markets like the US and the EU.
Dang, it's like solid there, all through there. We're like somewhere over here. Wow.
This strategy is meant to force companies like Valve to—
What is this? Each point represents Steam download activity from at least one Steam user during a recent 24-hour period. Man, Steam is huge.
To agree to their demands everywhere without a major fight. The good news is that Valve is not giving up. Their statement that they are actively looking for new payment methods for affected customers is a big sign that they are fighting for gamers and will not be pushed around by these companies, although they sort of have to right now. So the PayPal ban is not a bug. Whether it's the banks, card networks, payment processors, they all try to deny any of this is happening, but there is a clear history, not just with Steam, but for all kinds of reasons.
They can only deny it for so long. Everyone's going to piece it together. This video right here is already telling us that they removed it.
It's getting so big that we have the Japanese government and even Donald Trump stepping in to stop this from happening by signing a new executive order guaranteeing fair banking for all Americans.
Yeah, that was big. I think that was in our last video that we talked about that. That's going to hopefully make these companies authorize these transactions. They have to. They're legally obligated to. They have no say in what they can block.
We even got a statement from the chairman of the FDIC mentioning how they are going to be adding a new rule so these financial companies have to stop using reputational risk as a reason to deny business. So now we have MasterCard trying to remove service on Steam through their acquiring banks, PayPal removing service on Steam for a bunch of countries because of their acquiring banks, and Stripe removing service on itch because of their banking partners. So this is clearly a massive problem that needs to be fixed. In 6 months though, the government will officially have a strategy on stopping this from happening, which could include new laws and regulations, but obviously this might not help everyone around the world, like what we are seeing with PayPal removing service in select countries.
Which, I mean, them signing that in, even if it takes 6 months, I bet those companies are going to have to act fast to start authorizing transactions again, or they're going to be legally liable for anything in the past 6 months. If it takes that long, they would they would have to come up with something to make the companies obey the law, right? Especially if they add in more new laws. I think they should do that. There's no other way that these companies will bend the knee and officially give people full access to their transactions. They should never have taken away or blocked it to begin with. They thought they were above the law, and now they're signing in orders to change that.
The best part about this new statement, though, is that Valve officially confirms that they are working on new payment methods, especially for the affected countries.
Do you think Valve Pay? I was just gonna say, do you think Steam is just gonna come up with their own payment processor? That would be huge. I think if they're like, oh, we'll just make our own bank. That would be crazy, right?
have joked about the idea of Valve Pay, but Valve joining the payment space to avoid these problems really doesn't seem like a stretch anymore. Around 2012 to 2013, Valve
Windows 8 is a catastrophe, according to Gabe Newell, Valve heading with Steam on Linux.
became concerned that Microsoft's new Windows 8 and its App Store model could threaten Steam's dominance in PC gaming. This worry directly led Valve to create its own operating system, SteamOS, to reduce its reliance on Windows, which anyone who knows about SteamOS now, it outperforms Windows on gaming benchmarks. With this being such a big issue that clearly shows how these companies like Steam heavily rely on these payment companies, and Gabe Newell loving to be a game changer from his deep sea marine research to his neuroscience brain implant company, I wouldn't put it past them to try to make a solution. We also can't forget Elon Musk, who is aware of the Steam censorship.
Pirate Nation. Oh, there's now a petition to stop credit card companies and activists from controlling what we play, watch, and read.
And has mentioned he
We need to get X payments going soon. That would be insane.
is working on XPay. So this is a problem that we are dealing with right now, but hopefully it will be fixed soon. Do you think we can see Rule 15 removed from Steam by next year? You go to buy a problem.
Man. That was a really good video. We'll like that, of course. But yeah, this is so crazy. Like they're gonna have to change something soon, right? Like there's no way. Hopefully it's sooner than 6 months. But if it takes 6 months, I mean, at least in the U.S. it will. Hopefully the U.S. is a start of them changing the rules, updating the laws, and making it to where these companies have to obey the law and give us and process the transactions without telling us what we can and can't do, assuming it's legal. And then hopefully that transfers out into surrounding countries and other places in the world that are having that same issue with PayPal. And hopefully it just goes across the board and we can set an example for what needs to happen, and things will change then. Man, that's a really good video. I really like Water CS2. He's been doing some good videos on this. And so we actually have one more here. This was a day ago. So this one's Steam may now be on MasterCard's blacklist, which that sounds like with the video we just watched. If they have new laws go in effect, this probably won't even mean anything. Let's check it out. Maybe.
You go to buy a new game on Steam, try to check out, only to see that your payment method is just gone. For millions of gamers in dozens of countries, PayPal no longer works for buying games on Steam. It left everyone asking, what happened? We didn't have an official answer from Valve until just a few days ago. They said it was due to an acquiring bank that terminated service for nearly every single currency except 6 of them. At the time, it seemed pretty obvious that this was in connection to Rule 15 and a list of games getting removed from the platform just due to
What's crazy is they removed like over 15,000 games. It's ridiculous.
The timing of it. But I did see some comments from some people who doubted the connection to the Steam censorship, seeing as PayPal still kept its service for multiple currencies. So they thought it was just due to some currency conversion or just some other reason and not actually because of the Steam censorship. But Valve just gave a new response clearing up any confusion. They confirmed that this acquiring bank, which terminated its service, is directly tied to the MasterCard situation.
Oh shoot! Update. Valve has confirmed to RPS that this withdrawal of support for Steam transactions by one of PayPal's acquiring banks is regarding content on Steam related to what we've previously commented on surrounding MasterCard. In this case, one of PayPal's acquiring banks decided to stop processing any Steam transactions. That's a big
In a
one there.
statement,
Which cut off PayPal on Steam for a number of currencies, a Valve spokesperson
they
added.
said the reason was specifically regarding content on Steam related to what we previously commented on surrounding MasterCard.
Which is crazy because, I mean, I just don't understand how they're getting away with it. You know, I mean, luckily we have the new order signed in. I just hope that puts things in motion.
This is when acquiring banks and payment processors reached out and told Valve about MasterCard's content rules.
Oh yeah, and this was when they didn't
But Valve just
talk with them
responded and
directly.
said that it was legal. This brings up a huge question, as many start to realize there are some plot holes in the story. How is it that these acquiring banks and payment processors, who we don't even know the names of, at least yet, knew about specific content on Steam and wanted it removed? The original complainers were an Australian group called Collective Shout, and they didn't go to these acquiring banks.
PayPal, MasterCard, Visa, PaySafe Limited, Discover, Japan Credit Bureau.
They went
Dang.
to the bigger companies like MasterCard, Visa, and PayPal directly. So how did these banks actually find out? Especially if MasterCard claims that it isn't involved. Well, they have a warning system in place, but it doesn't come directly from MasterCard. Here is how it works. When MasterCard receives a complaint about a company's brand damaging content, like the one from Collective Shout, it doesn't go straight to the merchant itself. Instead, it contacts the merchant's acquiring banks. The
What? So they just bypass everything? Like, wouldn't they go right? Why wouldn't they just go to the source and say, hey, we're getting complaints about these games? And then Steam could have said, oh, all these games are legal. There's nothing wrong with them. There's no reason to get rid of them. Or, unless it's brand damaging. Like instead they go to the bank and then the bank can just cut it off whatever they feel like.
acquiring bank, which is financially responsible for the merchant, is now the one on the hook. If the acquiring banks don't fix the problem, MasterCard can give them massive fines or place them in a special monitoring program. So
What?
MasterCard pressures the banks and the banks pressure Valve. This turns into the acquiring bank doing its own investigation, like contacting the merchant directly. They will give them a warning.
Oh, so the bank contacts them directly. That just seems weird though. Why wouldn't MasterCard contact them directly?
Citing the specific rule that's being broken, like in this case, MasterCard's Rule 5.12.7. A way that they can make these merchants listen is simply by holding all their funds. So this is the warning system. It's why these big companies like MasterCard can sit back and act like they are not responsible for moderating content, because they make the banks do it instead. But what happens if the merchant
Man.
like Valve refuses to comply? Or if the bank decides the problem is just too big? Well, the bank will just flat out terminate the merchant's account. And once that happens, the bank
What?
is required to add the merchant to the match list. Match stands for Member Alert to Control High-Risk Merchants. It's a confidential database managed by MasterCard. It's so private that a merchant like Valve would never have access to it. It's a tool for acquiring banks to screen other merchants. A company
What?
can't get on the match list without their account being terminated first, and that termination must be for a specific reason.
Dang, there's a whole list here. Account data compromise, common point of purchase, laundering, excessive chargebacks, excessive fraud reserved, fraud conviction, MasterCard auto program, bankruptcy or insolvency, violation of standards, collusion, PCI noncompliance, illegal transactions, identity theft. And they might be just lumping this in under maybe illegal transactions, but I don't to me, none of these seem like they're even on the list of what's going on.
The reason code used in this case would likely be
Oh, violation of standards, I guess would be one. Yeah, yeah.
Violation of standards, or Reason Code 10, which is a direct result of breaking a rule like 5.12.7. In MasterCard's entire 484-page rulebook, the only mention of the match system is for this very rule. The rule that basically says MasterCard can remove any content they don't like. So, if an
That's
acquiring
crazy,
bank
man.
terminates service with a merchant, they would need to put them on the match list that could take up to 5 years or even longer to get taken off of. Even
What? So even if they got put on there and they change all this stuff, it would be even harder to add new banks onto it if they're all checking on the match system, right? So we need XPay now, and then we need Valve Pay or Valve Payments or whatever they're talking. I would sign up for both of those right away. I would, if I could do all my normal day-to-day stuff with those two companies, I would switch away from Visa if I could, you know.
if the merchants started following the rules, like what we've seen with Steam, adding Rule 15 and removing tons of adult content. Being on the match list doesn't necessarily mean every acquiring bank will have to stop doing business with you, but you will definitely be under more pressure to follow the rules. So, how does this connect to PayPal? Even though the termination was for one of PayPal's acquiring banks, the acquiring bank would still be obligated to report Valve to the match list, especially if they have any connection to MasterCard. This is because the
Wow.
bank views the merchant's overall risk profile, not just their risk on a single platform.
So they're just lumping in all the risk from the match and just saying, don't do it, pretty much. To
A problematic merchant on PayPal is still a problematic merchant who could cause issues with MasterCard. The match list is designed to prevent risky merchants from simply moving to another payment processor after being terminated. Imagine it as a big warning that pretty much says, watch out with working with this company, they are high risk. Now, this brings in the
wow.
question, who are these acquiring banks? While PayPal has hundreds of partners, the fact that only non-major currencies were affected gives us a big clue. The most likely candidates are a few global payment companies that handle a massive number of transactions for PayPal in different regions. Going by PayPal's partners, the ones that seem most likely to be involved include PPRO, dLocal, Adyen, and WorldPay.
I haven't heard of any of those.
But we won't know exactly which one it was just due to no one saying an exact name yet. These are all global payment processors with close ties to both PayPal and MasterCard.
Mm.
PPRO specializes in local payments for emerging markets, and dLocal is a giant in Latin America
Wow, Shopify, Microsoft, Google, Spotify, Uber, Tencent. Looks like they do stuff all over. Wow.
and Africa. Both have direct partnerships with
Africa?
MasterCard. Adyen and WorldPay are also massive global acquirers. They not only process credit card payments, but also provide services to other companies like PayPal. Their direct connections to both
Oh.
PayPal and MasterCard make them the most logical ones responsible that we can name right now. Unless someone like Valve wants to come out and tell us the exact bank, which it was. So when we talk about a bank terminating its service with Steam, it wasn't just a small bank in Brazil or a bank in Poland and a bank in India all deciding independently to cut off Valve at the same time. The termination likely came from one of these bigger global payment processors. So
Holy
now that we
cow.
know all this information, it points to a single conclusion. First, Valve's own statement explicitly state that the PayPal termination is related to what we've previously commented surrounding MasterCard. This means the core reason for the PayPal termination is the same as the reason MasterCard's acquiring banks pressured Valve to begin with, all over specific adult games on the platform.
Which is just crazy to me. Like, there has to be something that's going to happen, right? With when the hopefully new laws go in place. Like, there's no way they could, like, it has to go back to normal, right? Like, there's no way they can just keep cutting them off or leave them cut off. They have to let them back, right? Like, I just worry about Steam a little bit, you know?
So now that one of these major global acquiring banks has terminated its service with Steam, this kind of serious termination is the exact type of event that would require a mandatory report to the match list. So after this bank pulled out of Steam, they would have put Valve on this blacklist. So these financial companies are able to crack
Uh-oh.
down on content they don't like, and the match list is their most powerful tool for doing so. For Valve, being on the match list isn't a good thing. When finding new payment processors that are involved in this system, they will likely be seen as a risky client and face much higher fees.
Which is crazy though, because even if they get higher fees, isn't Steam so big? Like these banks got to make a lot of money off of these transactions, right? There's no way all of these games get bought and they don't make any money on each individual purchase that people make. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people that have their credit card on Steam or, have their PayPal hooked up that aren't these banks and companies losing money because they're blocking these payments? Like to me, it would have. I mean, if they're saying it's brand damaging, that makes sense. M- Maybe to a point for them. I'm just trying to look at it from both sides. But them pulling out and pushing Steam to the side, wouldn't they be making less money because Steam is such a big payment processing entity? Like there's so many games that get sold, so many sales that go on. Like I buy so many games on Steam when they go on sale. Like I mean, granted, I use a lot of the Steam wallet cards that you just get at the store, but I've still used my credit card a handful of times. There's no way they make $0 on every transaction.
And the listing can last for 5 years or even longer. But the bigger picture here is the immense power of these financial companies who work together to get the content they don't like.
Yeah, they have a huge monopoly. It's uh, such a big group with all these banks. I mean, there's only like a few major banks, but if they're all interconnected and all talking with this match thing, it's probably all getting disconnected. And then if you get new people, like kind of like you have to get the X payments and then the Steam or Valve payment program because they can control those and probably leave those open to let you buy just about anything without without compromising it. Where now that they're on Match, I mean, I don't think any new banks are probably going to work with Steam.
Removed. So while official confirmation is impossible due to MasterCard's match list being confidential, what we know from Valve's own statement and an understanding of the payment system tells us it's highly likely that Valve is now on the match list, seeing as a major acquiring bank has terminated service, which is exactly how you get on the list. Even though Valve added the new rule and got rid of a bunch of games, that still wouldn't be enough to just instantly get off the list either. So what will happen next for Steam, we will have to see.
Oh man.
Guys, it is happening.
Oh, that's a video
What
we'll watch later. Man, this is crazy, dude. I I don't know. We'll keep following this topic, but I really hope something different happens or something changes. Cause this is scary. If they can keep blocking transactions for all these games, like it's not gonna be good. If it gets worse, that's scary. Cause Steam is like my freaking favorite system to play on. So, but yeah, I guess Steam may now be on the blacklist. I bet they are. They're probably on a lot of other banks' blacklist as well. So I guess we'll just have to see how this plays out. I'll keep you guys updated on this.